again everyone, my name is Camille JC Sosa. So for today's video, I'm going to have a tutorial video about chapter 2, which is discussing about routing and switching. So if you're interested in this video, I'm going to discuss about how to use packet tracer, what is a basic configuration, so through switch and routers. So let's continue. So a routing and switching essentials course describes network architectures, components, and the operations of routers and switches in a small network. Um, Understands describe dynamics routing protocols, distance vector routing protocols, and link state routing protocols. Configure and troubleshoots basics operations of routers in a small routed network routing information protocols. Configure, monitor, and troubleshoot ACLs and IPv4 and IPv6. RAM stores data that is used by the device to support network operations. The running configuration stores in RAM, and the startup configuration stores in NVRAM. Considered as volatile memory because when there's a power shortage, the memory will be deleted. Flash memory is non-volatile since it contains contents during loss of power. So, basic thing that you're going to understand in this chapter is how to ping, which is ping is in order to test end-to-end connectivity. You will use the ping command. There are 4 answers. You can use one of the following: ping, trace, traceroute, and tracer. But in our system, you can use only ping. Operating systems functions with the shell, a kernel, and hardware. The shells interface with the users, allowing them to request specific tasks from the device. The kernel provisions resources from the hardware to meet software requirements. The hardware function by using drivers and their underlying electronics. The hardware represents the physical components of the device. User exec mode limits the access to some show and debug commands. It is a first level of user interface encountered when the configuration router is intended for investing of a certain investing in a certain functions of the device. The user exec prompt is identified with the symbol. To prevent all the configured password from appearing in a plain text in configuration file, an administrative can execute the service password encryption command. This command will automatically change your text password into encrypted form. SSH or C shell, it is preferred protocol for connecting to a device operating system over the network because it is much more secure than telnet. Both SSH and telnet are used to connect to device over the network, and so are both used in band PuTTY, and Terra term can be used to make the both SSH and telnet connections. And SVI is a virtual interface, and VLAN 1 is enabled by default on Cisco switches. VLAN 99 must be configured to be used. Fast Ethernet 01 and Gigabit 01 are physical interfaces. On a Windows PC, the ipconfig command can be used to verify the current IP configuration. The ping command can be used to verify connectivity to other network devices. The show interface and show IP interface brief commands are both Cisco iOS commands that are used to see the status of router and switch interfaces. So let's proceed to the situations. A router has a valid operating systems and a configuration file stored In NVRAM, the configuration file contains an enable secret password but no console password. When the router boots up, which mode will display? If a Cisco iOS device has a valid iOS and valid configuration file, it will boot into user exec mode. A password will be required to enter privilege exec mode. Which two functions are provided to users by the context sensitivity have feature of Cisco iOS CLI. Context sensitivity have provides the user with a list of commands and arguments associated with those commands within the current mode of a network device. A syntax checker provides error and checks on submitted commands, and the tab key can be used for the command completion of partial command is entered. While trying to solve a network issue, a technician made multiple changes to the current router configuration file. The changes did not solve the problem and were not saved. What action can the technician take to discard the changes and work with the file in NVRAM? The technician does not want to make any mistake trying to remove all the changes that were done to the running configuration file. The solution is to remove the router without saving the running configuration. The copy startup config running config command does not override the running configuration while the configuration file is stored in NVRAM, but rather it just has an additive effect. A router with a valid operating system contains a configuration file stored in NVRAM. The configuration file has an enable secret password but no console password. When the router boots up, which mode will display? If a Cisco iOS device has a valid iOS and valid configuration route, it will not boot into user exec mode. A password will be required to enter in privilege exec mode. A technician is adding a PC to a LAN. After unpacking the components and making all the connection, the technician starts the PC after the OS loads. The technician opens a browser and verifies that the PC can reach the internet. Why was the PC able to connect to the network with no additional configuration? The PC was pre-configured to use DHCP when the PC is connected to a network that uses DHCP. It gets the IP address settings from the DHCP server that will allow it to function on the network. All devices requires at least an IP address and subnet mask to function on a LAN. DNS does not automatically configure the address on host. PC virtual interface are not universally compatible with LANs and do not necessarily provide hosts with an IP address. At this place in the course, virtual interfaces are used on network switches. An administrator has just changed the IP address of an interface on an iOS device. What else must be done in order to apply those changes to the device? Changes to routers and switch configuration take effect as soon as the command is entered. For this reason, it is very important that changes to leave production device are always carefully planned before being implemented. If commands are entered that render the device unstable or inaccessible, the device may have to be reloaded, resulting in network downtime. So that's all for chapter 2 tutorial. I hope you enjoy, I hope you learn more, and I hope you stay tuned in my next video. Bye!